Hello my students. Today I am going to talk about sampling methods. In research, sampling method is one of the first steps that we need to start for collecting data. And as you know, without data, we cannot come to any conclusion. We cannot go for analysis and come to any conclusion. So sampling methods is one of the very significant step in research. Here I'd like to explain what is called sampling. You can read this line that the process of selecting a number of individuals for a study in such a way that the individuals represent the larger group from which they were selected. Say for example, you are going to sample a herd of deers. Now you cannot go to each and every deer. What you will do, you will collect a number of individuals, a number of deers from that herd of deers. So these numbers that you have selected, this is called sample. And the larger group of the herd, it is called a population. Now here you can see, this is the larger population of deers, for example, and you have selected a sample of 9 deers, and these 9 deers, they form the sample. In a very simple way, you can say that while selecting some individuals from a larger group, these some individuals represent the larger group, then this small number of individuals that you have selected from the larger group is called sample. So what is a sample? It is a smaller but representative group or units from a larger population through which we can determine the truth about the population. While selecting samples, you should be very careful so that the numbers or individuals you are selecting, they should represent the group or the larger population. And while we go for sample, we always go for a sampling frame. What is sampling frame then? Sampling frame means a list of all elements or other units containing the elements in a population. Within the population, you will find some of the common features. So what you will do, since you cannot go each and every individual, you will pick up some elements or a list of elements which will help you to go for sampling. Say for example, in case of birds, if you go for sampling of birds in a wetland, what you will do, you will select for migratory birds, say for example. And you understand that migratory birds are a bit colorful. So what you will do, you will pick up those elements through which you can have a better sample of migratory birds. So for example, your sampling frame will be brown capped rosy finch, white winged crossbill, black rosy finch, etc. Because these colored birds, they are to some extent migratory. While selecting these colorful birds, you are actually selecting or sampling the representative number of migratory birds. So this is your sample. Then sample means it is related to some population. In that case, we collect the individuals or a sample from the population. And what we do? We do our study on the sample, not the whole population. So because the sample study on the sample, whatever result comes, these results are believed to be the results of this population. So for example, you want to study the class 10 students, the height of the class 10 students. Now you cannot go to measure the height of the each and every student from the class 10. So what you will do, we will collect a sample from the class 10 students from different schools, and we will measure the height. So that height would be generalized as a height of the class 10 students. So it helps, the sample helps us to have a general conclusion of the on the population. So population is, as I told you earlier slides, that it is a larger group from where we collect the samples. Sometimes it happens that we have a target population, and the target population, what is that? Human population is the target, but you cannot go to each and every human races. So you should have some source population. From the source population, you will collect the study population. One very beautiful example I can give you, where the diabetic patients. So what you can, their diabetes is a disorder. It may be there in case of younger age, in case of middle age, in case of older age. So we cannot cover all these three classes while studying diabetic patients. So our study population is human being. Obviously, we will find a source population, that this is the population, the old age population we will target. And when we are going to target old age population, we will target only diabetic patients from the old age population. So this is our target population. So human is our study population, old age is our source population, and the diabetic patients from this old age group, these are our target population. This way, within the population, we have a different categories of the population. And what we will do, we will collect samples from these target populations, and that sample will represent this whole target population or the source population. So before starting sampling, we need to ask that who do you want to generalize to? Means on which population you want to make a generalized comment or generalized finding. Yes, you have to identify the theoretical population. Yes, this is the population: bird population, fish population, insect population. So you need to identify first on which population you are going to study and generalize some outcomes. Then second comes, what population can you get access to? Whatever population you have taken, you may not access the whole population. You may not have access to the whole population. So you will confine your area, your total population to some groups, which is called the study population. Maybe at first instance you will take, no, I will go for the female population only. Now how can you get access to them? Yes, you need to have the sampling frame. I will consider those females which are from that particular area, or which are from this age to that age, or which are having some obesity. So you are making a frame. Then who is in your study? Yes, you have a target population, you have a study population, you have prepared a sampling frame. Now this sampling frame, within this from this sampling frame, you will collect your samples. May not be possible that all the individuals in the sampling frame will come to your study. You will select a few numbers of individuals from the sampling frame, and that is called the sample of the population. So very clearly, there is a purpose of the sampling. It aims to gather data about the population in order to make an inference that can be generalized to the population. That is a very common and generalized aim. I am telling again, it is a very common and generalized aim. Here what we do, we collect a small number of individuals and we do study our objectives on this small number of individuals, and whatever results we get, that not only represent this small number of individuals which we call sample, it represent the outcome from the whole population where from the sample was collected. So what we get, we can generate data, we can make inferences, and we can come to a conclusion. That conclusion is applied to the whole population. There are several steps of sampling. First, you need to define the sample, which sample you are going to have. Now you define a sampling frame. What are the features your sample should have? As I told you in the earlier slide, that if I go for sampling of birds, migratory birds, I will make some sampling frames. Otherwise, I may not be able to separate the migratory birds from non-migratory birds. So I will make a list of features through which I can easily record the migratory birds. This is called sampling frame. Then determine the sampling procedure. When you got the sampling frame, how to sample sample the individuals from the sampling frame. So you have to determine the procedure. There are two types of procedures. One is probability, second is non-probability sampling. Under probability sampling, you'll find simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and multi-stage sampling. Whereas here in case of non-probability sampling, you will find convenient, judgmental, quota, and snowball sampling. From both the sampling types, you will determine the appropriate sample size, and then you go for sampling. Here, let us discuss one by one. First one was what? It was probability sampling. This is probability sampling. So it is called random sampling. Probability sampling is also known as random sampling. There are four techniques for random sampling. First is simple random sampling. Second is stratified random sampling. Third is cluster sampling, and fourth is systematic sampling. First one is simple random sampling. This is a method of sampling where the samples are selected such a way that the members of the populations have equal and independent chance of being selected. You cannot choose some items or some samples biasedly to collect and leave some other samples for some reasons. You have to close your eyes and just sample the individuals from the population. This is called random sampling. And the advantages of random sampling is that it is very easy to conduct. Since it runs on randomness, random procedure, you are not confined to a particular area. One example I would like to give. Suppose if I ask you to collect samples of school-going students from a village, and when you enter the village, you have found that the village having a Paka road, and at some area you cannot reach the houses. So what you will do? You will collect samples from those areas where the communication is better, and those areas where communication is not up to the mark, you are not going to that particular those houses. So this is a bias sampling. So you are not getting representative samples. Random sampling means irrespective of all other factors, you have given all the houses a chance to visit and pick up data whether there is any school going children or not. So the simple random sampling has high probability of achieving representative samples. And when you go for simple random sampling, as I told you, every data we collect, we have to analyze them by some procedures, which one is called statistical procedure. So there, when we collect data through random sampling, it meets the assumptions of many statistical procedures. The statistical procedures have some rules and regulations. These rules and regulations can be complied only when we go for simple random sampling. But it has some disadvantages also. See here, identification of all members of the population can be difficult. Many times it is easier. You know that these areas, households are not easy to access because of there is no road. But many times it is difficult. Which populations you will leave or which populations you will go for. So identification of all members of the population can be difficult in case of random sampling. Similarly, contacting all members of the sample which we have selected randomly may also be difficult. You might have selected a house from a very far-flung area in that village, and when you travel there, no one was there. Since they were in a far-flung area, your whole time wasted and your all efforts were gone. So in that case, many times it happens that when you go for random sampling, contacting all members of the sample becomes little bit difficult. In case of random sampling, there is a selection process. What you do, you can identify first. You can identify and define the population, so that you know already. Then you determine the desired sample size. How many individuals you will select? Maybe 50, 100, 1000. So whatever may be the number, depending on the population, you have to fix it. Then you can make a list of the members of the population and assign them some numbers, or you can make some orders. Say for example, here you can see this is the sample. Here some numbers are assigned to the sample. There may be some variations among the samples, like yellow, red and white. Even though irrespective of these differences, you can assign some numbers or you can arrange them in some orders. Now while selecting the subsamples, what you have to do, suppose I select 1, then I will select 9, then I will select 5, 7, 2, 11. So you can see I am not following any order. This is random, and there is every chance that you are selecting the lowest number order as well as the highest order, 11. So this is how we can go for sampling. The second one is stratified random sampling. Many times it happens that we cannot sample from a group because there are many subgroups. So in that case, what we will do, we will divide that group into several subgroups. So here you can see the population is divided into 2 or more groups called strata. This is according to some criteria such as geographic criteria, geographic location, grade level, age, income, etc., etc. So from these subsamples, the individuals are selected randomly. Means you have a group, or you can say you have a group from a large population. There may be more than 4 or 5 groups. So from each group you are selecting some samples. This is an explanation you can see here. There are many groups on racial basis: Caucasians, African American and Hispanic American. So from each of them you are selecting some individuals as a subsample. So these subsamples you are selecting, 1, 2, 3 samples you are selecting, they will represent this sample. So this is how it is called random sampling, dividing some strata, or you can say the stratified random sampling. It has some advantages. you can go for accurate sampling, because many times it happens that if you sample from the main population, some groups may be dropped. Say for example, if you select from this sample, maybe it happens that Caucasian group may not be represented in your sample. So when you make a subsample, you are ensuring that the population from the Caucasian will be presented in your sample. In case of stratified random sampling, we have some advantages. First one is that it gives us more accurate sample. It's because when we collect samples from a large group, and if that large group has some subgroups may missed out from our sample. So if we make them cluster or stratify them and collect samples from each stratum, then this type of mistake that a group may be missed out, it never happens. Second is that it can be used for both proportional and non-proportional samples. What does it mean? Proportional means, suppose in a large sample, two groups are there with 50:50. So here what we do, we can collect sample from each proportionate groups. It may also happen that the large group may have 50:30 and also 10. So from each subsamples we can also collect small samples, and this sample will represent every subsample of this larger sample. So it can be applied for both proportional and non-proportional samples. That is why this is best one to represent all subgroups in the sample. But it has some disadvantages also. Many times we cannot identify all the members of a subgroup, or it may also happen that we may not be able to properly subgroup them if there are some mixtures, so there are some combinations. So these are the disadvantages. And third one is that cluster sampling. Here also similar like the previous one, the population is divided into some subgroups. Now it is called clusters. It is not strata, it is called clusters. Now from each cluster the sampling is done. What happens? In this case you will find that the samples are scattered around in a large area, or in different properties, it is not in a same area or same location. So what we do, in this picture you can see this is a group, this is a group, here is another group, or here is another group. So it may be possible that we are not looking for all the groups, section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, section 5. We need some groups which are of our requirement. So in that case we can cluster each of the section. This is the sections, means these are the clusters, and we can collect samples. This is a sample and this is another sample. This way if we need, we can collect these three samples, these three different subgroups, 1, 2 and 3. From these three subgroups we may collect samples, or we may collect samples from these two subgroups. So this way it is called cluster sampling. In case of cluster sampling, it is very useful when populations are large and spread over a large geographic region. So you cannot cover whole geographic region, and in that case we go for small clusters, and from those clusters we collect samples. Means it is kind of samples of samples. Large populations are sampled as a cluster. Then from each cluster you are going to sample the individuals as your sample, and it is very convenient. And here, since you are going for samples of sample, you need not go to everyone in the population. But still some disadvantages are there. and one of the most important is that it representation in this case may not be completely perfect, or there is a chance, every chance is that you may miss out some of the populations. So this minor mistake may take place in case of cluster sampling. See here, it is a population, so cluster 1, cluster 2 and cluster 3. These 3 clusters are now prepared from this population. Then from each one we are going to sample few of the individuals. So this population is divided into different clusters, and remember, depending on different properties also, and sometimes if they are having similar properties, there is no difference, then also we can make the cluster. So these are the samples from the population, and we are having sub-samples from each cluster. So these samples will represent this cluster, and the outcome of all these 3 clusters will represent the population. The fourth one is that systematic sampling. In case of systematic sampling, what is done? The population is arranged in a systematic way. Either maybe group or maybe individual, but there is a sampling frame. Frame means there are some structures or properties on the basis of which the population is arranged. You can say in the height, suppose, or in order of height, you can arrange. Now every nth number of individual is selected. Say for example, if you think about the blue colored picture in this series of pictures, so we have arranged them every third one. So you can see the third one, 1 2 3 1 2 3. So this way you can make the samples in each nth number. So what is the procedure of systematic sampling? In systematic sampling, identify and define a population. Then again, similarly, earlier you have done, determine the desired sample size. Then determine what k is equal to be dividing the size of the population. So if the population is 10, you can divide it by 2. If it is 12, you can divide it by 4. So you know every third individual you can select. So that is why the k you have to divide. K is the third individual. Or if you divide by 2 to 10 individuals, the k is second individual. Every second individual is a k. So that way you need to list them and you have to select them. So this is an example. You can see the example is very nicely given here. Just I am reading out. See, to select a sample of 25 dorm rooms in your college dorm, it makes a list of all the rooms number in the dorm. For example, there are 100 rooms. Divide the total number of rooms 100 by the number of rooms you want in the sample, 25. Right? You need 25 samples. So there are 100 rooms and divide 100 by 25. Now your answer is 4. This is the k. This means that you are going to select every fourth room, kth room. So fourth room. So what will come? If you start from 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, etc. So till you get the 25 rooms, you will continue with this order. So this is what systematic sampling. Now we are coming to non-probability sampling. So here, like the probability sampling, we cannot fix the sample, we cannot determine in which order we are going to sample. So the total population from where we are going to, how many samples we are going to do, it is not known. So many times how many we are going to select, there is no prejudgment. It depends on the convenience of the person. Say for if there are few old age population compared to the young age population, I will believe that no, I will go to 2 persons because there are only 4 persons. And if there are 100 persons, I can go to at least 50 to represent. But since the population is very low, or you cannot have a very statistically strong, means you cannot go for operation of statistical test on that population, I will collect some individuals which will give me some information. So there is no any probability or any statistics involved in this case. Here there are 5 types, you can say. One is convenience sampling, second is quota sampling, third is judgmental sampling, fourth is snowball sampling, and fifth is self-selection sampling. Let us see the convenience sampling. Here in this picture you can see the woman is calling the person. Means there is no pre-design, there is no preset rule how to go to sample. The woman was looking from her window that she will ask some questions to some person. So who is the person, that doesn't matter. So she found that someone is coming, so she asked questions to the person. So it is a kind of accidental sampling, because this is the convenience for a woman to ask from the window to the person those questions. So that is why it depends on the convenience of the researcher and as well as the convenience of the respondents. If you can say she is the researcher and he is the respondents. So depending on the convenience of both the persons, researcher and the respondents, this convenience sampling is performed. And advantage is there, you can say it a very low cost, there is no need to go anywhere else, because if you like you will question, if you don't like you don't question. So this is extensively used or understood in most of the social science cases, behavior studies. This kind of non-probability sampling is applied. But the problem is that there are some disadvantages. There are high probability of bias observations. Means if you like you are asking, if you don't like you don't ask. In that case we may not know the fact what is behind a particular problem. Then projecting data beyond sample not justified. Sometimes it happens you are projecting the, because it is up to your convenience. If you get chance you will ask multiple questions and number of samples you will collect. So that is not required in all the time, and you cannot make a generalization, because those samples from where you have collected, those are as per your convenience or as per the samples convenience, means the responders convenience. So the actual information may not be achieved through this kind of sampling. Second is the quota sampling. So here the researchers gather second is the quota sampling. In this case the researchers gather data from individuals possessing identified characteristics and quotas. It means populations are segmented on the basis of subgroups, and from each subgroup it is made compulsion that at least 5 samples should be selected. This is quota. Means, say for example I want to see the ethnicity of a community. So ethnicity means there may be 5 different races. So I will make a quota for each race. From each community there should be at least 50 individuals. So I have already subgrouped them, and it is compulsory that I will collect the samples from them. So many times it happens that you may get 1000 from one community and 5 from other community. So there is no probability, you cannot predict that every race will come under your quota, or every race may have sufficient data to give you proper information. Many times it happens that against 100 individual there is one only individual from one group. So you have to rely on that particular single individual. It is just like stratified sampling, but here you cannot apply those statistics, because with single data sample we cannot apply statistics. But you have to agree if you are following non-probability sampling. If you go to probability sampling, this procedure will not work. But in case of non-probability sampling, you have to accept that single individual or group to make a sample from that particular subgroup. There are some disadvantages and advantages for quota sampling. Out of the advantages, first one is that used when research budget is limited. So you cannot wait for longer time. You cannot wait for larger samples. So your budget is limited. So you are just following the quota sampling. You will go for this number of groups only. And that is why, since budget is limited, and you can consider all kind of samples as single samples or multiple samples, samples with one individuals or sample with many individuals. So it is very extensively used, and there is no need to list the population elements. So like random sampling, here you don't require to list the population elements. And of the disadvantages, the variability and bias cannot be measured control. Means that you cannot avoid the biasness, and you cannot understand how variable your data. Means data may be uniform, and uniform data you cannot get the proper information. If all data are coming from or samples coming from one type only, you cannot get, because in the community, in the population, there are variations, and you have to give opportunity to each those samples with different variations, different characters. So such variability you cannot test in this kind of sampling. And it is time consuming. You have to group them. You have to see how the groups are forming. You have to classify them, cluster them. So it is time consuming. Similarly, if it goes beyond the sample size or your required sample, you cannot justify it. And third one is judgmental sampling. So here the researcher employs his or her own expert judgment about whether I should sample from this population or that population. What are the advantages of sampling from this population and disadvantages of sampling from those populations? On the basis of such justification, here the researcher sample from the convenient population. So in that case, you can assure, yes, if I sample from this population, I can get maximum responses. It happens because, say for example, you have a questionnaire, a list of questions which are written in English, and you want to get a good response from the population. So what you will do? You will go for the educated one. You will go to those population who understand English. So in that case, it gives an assurance that the responses will come, and those responses will be of quality in nature. So it helps to meet the specific objective of a research. Then it has also disadvantages. If you want to know what is the economic status of the country, and for that if you only ask question to the people, those who know English, then you might be missing out the people who know Hindi as well as the other modern Indian languages. So there is every chance that bias may take place, and this is a time consuming, because you have to find a target group depending on your judgment. If you want to know that they should know some mathematics, from where you will collect the sample, these individuals should know mathematics, then you have to collect information regarding whether they know mathematics or not. Then you can select the group. So it is a kind of a time consuming job. And the fourth one is snowball sampling. Here the research starts with a key person and introduce the next one to become a chain. It's a chain interview, you can say. So one person will start sampling or collecting information, then the person, key person, will hand over or transfer the job to the another person. So it will go on chain like pattern. So that way the informations will come to the source. So here only it is applied, it is useful when the population is very rare. Means you cannot connect all populations at a time. In some villages, remote villages, you will find that villages are very far apart, and you have to do a hard job to reach each and every village. So what you will do, you will just 1 year you will wait, that you will just inform the first village that this is the information you need from rest of the villages. So some people from that village may visit the another village next month. So this way the whole villages will be covered. So this is a kind of a low cost system. Just you will leave the questions or leave the information you need to know from the samples here in the villages and wait till they complete the chain, maybe 1 year or 2 years. It's low cost but time consuming. But it is not independent. You have to depend on the persons who are serving as a chain between two villages or 2 units of the samples. So that means you are not independent. You are dependent on the person or sample who is performing as a chain. Similarly, projecting data beyond sample not justified. You cannot say how many data you need, or if data is going is increasing any means by any number, you cannot justify it. The fifth one is self-selection sampling. See, it occurs when you allow each case, usually individuals, to identify their desire to take part in the research or not. You will ask them, are you willing to take part in the research? They may say yes, then you invite them, or they may say no, then you leave them. This is applicable in some specific circumstances. Say, for example, in the previous slide I told you that if you want to know the economic status of the country, you will ask the question whether you know or do you like to comment on the economic status of the country. Please comment as A, B, C, D. So if the person has some kind of knowledge, he or she will definitely take part and he will say yes, I agree to participate in this research. So you are giving some accurate information, because accurate opinion or information from the person who knows. But if you ask a person, he doesn't know the economic status of the country, even though he takes part or she takes part, it may not be useful for you. So that is why self-selection gives some accurate opinion for a particular research. That is why it is also useful in case of specific circumstances only. But it is more costly. You have to advertise, or you have to invite people, promote your intention that yes, I want to know all these things, please come forward and express your views, please come forward and share with in my research. And second is that the large number of population may not take part because they don't have the knowledge on economic status of the country. So you may leave apart a large mass of population in this case. That is another negative part in the self-selection. So I think you have got some information or knowledge on the sampling methods. Next class we will discuss few more things regarding research methodology. Till then, thank you.